Hey, so this is a UU match, which was kind of a change for me because I only play OU most of the time. Although I do know a little bit about this tier because I used to play it, I haven't really done much in it for months. So anyway, I lead off with Scarf Venusaur, and he goes with Uxie. I'm going to get off the Fast Sleep Powder, which is going to help me shut down any attempts at setting up. Because in UU, lots of leads actually set up spikes in addition to Stealth Rock, so that's always nice to shut him down early. I'm going to go to Swellow to get the free Toxic Orb activation as he switches to Spiritomb. And I really should have just U-turned out to scout for counters, but I actually forgot that Shadow Sneak doesn't affect Swellow because it's Ghost and Swellow's normal. So yeah, that was pretty bad on my part. I go to Registeel to wall him and set up Stealth Rock, but he goes to Rhyperior, so I'm forced to switch out to Rotom on the Earthquake. Not really sure what he's going to switch in, so I'm just going to get the free sub up just to scout for whatever he does. And he sends Spiritomb back in, so I'm going to Thunderbolt it for some damage and scout what move he's going to use. I'm not exactly sure what set it is, but I can see. And he actually goes for a Pursuit, so that's going to make things a little hard for me because this is a really frail Rotom. It's subcharged with pretty much no defensive investment, so that means that a Pursuit could probably take me out. So I'm actually not going to switch out. I'm just going to stay in and keep Thunderbolting, because if I switch out, then I'm probably going to get KO'd by that Pursuit. But he makes a pretty good prediction, I think, and goes for the Shadow Ball instead, which doesn't quite KO me, but it will next turn, so it really doesn't matter that much. Although I'm probably going to get out one more attack as long as he doesn't have Shadow Sneak. I don't think he does, though. So I tried to switch out that time, but I really should have seen that coming. I could have gotten one more Thunderbolt in if I was a little smarter, but yeah, he takes out Rotom, which is pretty annoying because it has a lot of useful resistances. So now I go into a Registeel because I'm pretty sure that'll wall Spiritomb, and I get up Stealth Rock for free. I'm not really sure why he stayed in, unless he had something like maybe Will-O-Wisp, which I wanted to scout for here by going to Swellow. And he gets paralyzed again, although it wouldn't really matter because if it was Will-O-Wisp, Swellow's already poisoned, so switching to it was a pretty decent move since he's immune to status right now. This time I'm going to U-turn out. You always want to save a Pokemon like Swellow for late game because he needs that Toxic Orb to boost his Guts activation, and if I keep him in too long before late game sweeping, then he's probably going to end up dying before I want him to. So I go into Kabutops trying to waterfall that Rhyperior, but he goes into a Miltank, and I actually don't have much to do against Miltank on this team. I'd actually say that I'm somewhat Miltank weak, actually. So I'm just going to try to beat him with a combination of hard-hitting attacks, but he just keeps milk drinking the entire time. I mean, this actually reminds me of that time when I was fighting Whitney in Heart Gold. A lot of people complain about how her Miltank keeps milk drinking. Well, imagine that except worse, because this is an actual competitive battle, so you really don't have anything you can do against it. I should probably fix my team to make it less Miltank weak, but yeah, I wasn't really that experienced with UU, so I wasn't really expecting it either. So I think the only thing I can do is keep Stone Edging and hoping for a crit, because it has that extra crit rate. It's a little higher than average, so I was hoping to pull that off. I know it's kind of lame just to depend on hacks, but there's really nothing else I had to do right now. So I'm going to go for a Waterfall. Obviously the crit chance didn't pay off, so maybe I could try flinching him because that's a 20% rate, which is a little higher than Stone Edge's crit chance. But he just keeps recovering the entire time, which is really annoying. I hate cows. So obviously Kabutops isn't doing that much, even with Life Orb. And it's actually a pretty hard hitter. I have a addition to the Life Orb in Adamant Nature with max attack EVs. So I think I'm around 361 attack points, because that is the max amount that Kabutops has. And he switches out at this point and goes to Uxie. I'm not really sure why he did. Maybe he was just tired of drinking milk, recovering, because he probably lost patience and just decided to switch out. Although I'm not sure why he would go to Uxie, because I'm going to be able to do a pretty good amount of damage. Maybe he was just hoping to wake up so he could set up Stealth Rock, but I don't think he does actually. He just stays asleep, which is pretty good for me because a lot of my team is weak to Stealth Rock, which is why I need Kabutops. I gave him Rapid Spin just to spin away entry hazards. so stuff like Swellow and some of my other Pokemon have a easier time switching in. So I'm going to U-turn again. I don't really want that toxic damage, so I'm not really going to stay in at all. That did a ton of damage considering that it was just a U-turn, which is a pretty weak attack, honestly. So I'm going to go out to my Arcanine. I'm running Flash Fire instead of Intimidate, because I don't have that many fire resists other than Kabutops, so I really like that ability to switch into fire and boost myself. I'm just going to go straight for that Flare Blitz, and it does a really good amount of damage to Porygon. It takes him out, but now he goes into Miltank. I think I should have scouted to see what set he was running. I think that Miltank's abilities are Scrappy, which hits ghost types, and Thick Fat, which halves the damage from ice and fire. And I think I just assumed that it was Thick Fat. I'm making a lot of pretty bad assumptions in this case. I'm not really sure why. Maybe I was just rushing the battle. I'm not sure. So I'm going to go into Registeel now. There's really nothing else I can do against Miltank, so hopefully I'll be able to weaken it or something. And I went into Registeel. I'm not really sure why, but I double switched back to Arcanine. And I just get up that Morning Sun because I want to get my recovery going. And he goes for a Body Slam. Hopefully that doesn't paralyze me, although it does, of course. And it's not really as bad as Snorlax's Body Slam, because Body Slam only has a 30% paralysis rate, but Snorlax's, I could have sworn that his is like 70%, because it literally paralyzes almost every single time. So I'm going to just keep using Morning Sun. I know that he has a Rhyperior, and I was wondering why he didn't switch it into Arcanine, because it would have made a really great switch into Arcanine, and I'm actually running HP Grass on this with Life Orb, using it as a lure so I can, lure, so I can use it to KO Rhyperior and open up the opposing team for a Swellow sweep. So I thought that he would switch to Rhyperior at this point. I'm making a lot of over-predictions in this case, but no, he just stays in with his Miltank, and I'm forced to switch out again to Registeel. He doesn't really mind if he gets paralyzed considering how slow he is anyway. So I'm at least going to be able to maybe paralyze him and get off some damage as well. And now he reveals Fire Punch, and even though that's super effective, Registeel was a pretty bulky Pokemon. So you can see that even with that crit, it really didn't do that much, less than half actually. So I'm just going to Seismic Toss because I thought he would switch to Rhyperior again. I'm not really sure why he isn't switching, but maybe he's realized that his Miltank pretty much walls most of my team, and I can't really do much against it. So I'm going to get off the Thunder Wave here. I'm not really sure if that'll help at all, but I might be able to get lucky and get a couple of fully paralysis statuses so I can sweep through his Miltank. I'm getting pretty desperate here. As you can see, I really don't have anything to do against Miltank. So I switch out back to Arcanine because I thought that I could do more damage with it. And for some reason he goes out to Spiritomb, not really sure why. And since I'm paralyzed anyway, I'm just going to stay in and get the Flare Blitz off. He tries to finish me off with Shadow Ball, but I have just enough damage, survive with just enough health to get that final Flare Blitz off. And with Adamant Life Orb, that's definitely going to KO his Spiritomb. Of course I lose Arcanine, but at least I got rid of something. So now he goes to Azumarill, actually, and I'm actually going to send out my Swellow. I like using it kind of like the same way I would use Scarf Flygon in OU, just as a scout because it's so fast and does a pretty good amount of damage. And I switched to Venusaur because I thought he might Aqua Jet, and now he goes to Rhyperior, and I really thought he would switch. I mean, there's no way anyone would stay in, right? Well, apparently I was wrong because I Sludge Bombed trying to predict a switch, except he actually stays in Earthquakes, and that was actually a really crucial point in the game. He has a Life Orb Earthquake, so it does a lot of damage. You'll actually see that if I had just used Leaf Storm, which was the obvious move, I probably would have won this match, actually. But yeah, it really doesn't matter. You can't change the past. So I'm going to go into Venusaur and actually get off the Leaf Storm this time. You know, if I think about it, I'm not really sure if he had any grass resists left, so maybe I should have actually stopped and thought for a second instead of just rushing the whole time. So now he sends out Azumarill, and this is what I was talking about earlier. Since he got that Earthquake off, it weakened him into range for Aqua Jet to KO me. I don't think that crit mattered, to be honest, because Azumarill has a really high HP stat, or not HP, attack stat, what am I saying? So I go into Swellow now, and I thought that I could KO his, not KO his Azumarill, but at least get it down to really low health. And I see that he's actually playing really safe here, because what he's planning to do is make all the rest of his team die first, so he can wear me down with Toxic Orb damage and get off that final Aqua Jet to finish me off. So that's really smart playing on his parts. Although this entire situation probably could have been avoided if I had just Leaf Stormed that Rhyperior. So I'm going to use the Facade on Miltank. He gets a full paralysis, which is pretty hacksy. He might have been able to get off a Body Slam and do a decent amount of damage, which definitely would have shifted the odds even more in his favor. So the Toxic Orb damage is really wearing me down at this point. Now, I was really hoping that I could survive that Aqua Jet, but Swellow's really frail, and Azumarill's Aqua Jet does a lot of damage to something like Swellow, so I'm going to lose that game. Good game.